Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today we're doing a Red Dragon Archfiend deck profile. So you guys have actually been requesting me to do an update of this a lot, and I'm really excited to actually do this one because this is actually like one of my favorite decks from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds with all sorts of amazing retrains, like Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend being the original Red Dragon Archfiend's retrain, and it just being like the boss monster deck is just amazing to me. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below because we have all sorts of awesome rewards for you guys, like getting your name description for every single video, getting a signed cards in the mail, or even getting Twist deck profile every single month through a patron along with test hands. So without further ado guys, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Crimson Resonator. This card is a really good card in the deck that has a really good effect. That if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if the only other monster you control is exactly one Dark Dragon Synchro monster, you can special summon it to do Resonator monsters from your hand or deck, except another copy of itself. You can only use each of the following effects of this card once per turn. You cannot special summon monsters from your extra deck except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters the turn you activate and resolve each of these effects, which is pretty good. I like the effect to be able to get those monsters out from the deck, and it's just an overall really good card in the deck. We then play 3 copies of a Red Resonator. Red Resonator is really good because you can special summon from your hand when this card is normal summon. You can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand, and then when this card is special summon, you get to target one face-up monster on the field, and you gain life points equal to that monster's attack. So it has a normal summon and a special summon effect, which is really good on this card, and it helps you go into Red Riser Dragon really easily. We then play 3 copies of Synchron Resonator, which they spelled it with a K, which I mention every single time. They spelled it with a K to actually make it not a part of the Synchron archetype, because this is Jack Atlas's archetype and not Yusei Fudo's, because the Synchron archetype is Yusei's and this is Jack's, and so they spelled it with a K just so it wouldn't be a part of his, which is funny and kind of, it's like the most petty thing I've seen in a while. But what this card does is if a Synchro monster is on the field, then you can special summon this card from your hand, and you only special summon Synchron Resonator once per turn this way. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target a Resonator monster in your graveyard except another copy of itself and add it back to your hand, which is pretty good. For the other Resonators, we play a single copy of Txne, which when this card is normal summon, while a Synchro monster is on the field, you can special summon another Resonator from your deck, which is super helpful for you to go for certain monsters that require 2 tuner monsters. And we play a single copy of Creation Resonator, which is pretty good too, that if you control level 8 or higher Synchro monster, then you can special summon this card from your hand, which is pretty helpful for the deck to be able to get you those monsters out on the field as quickly as possible. And it's just an overall really good card in the deck too. So we then play a single copy of Red Familiar. Red Familiar helps out a lot because it has the ability that you contribute 1 Fiend monster and then target 1 Dark Dragon Synchro monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position, but you negate the effects, and you can banish this card from your graveyard, and then you get to target 1 Dark Dragon Synchro monster you control and declare a level between 1 and 8, and that monster becomes a level until the end of the turn, which is pretty good. We then play 3 copies of Wandering King Wildwind. Wandering King Wildwind helps out in the deck quite a lot because it has the ability that if you control a Fiend monster with 1500 or less attack, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you attempt this, you cannot special summon from your extra deck for the rest of the turn except for Synchro monsters. And then during the main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it, and then you get to add a Fiend monster that's a tuner level or with 1500 or less attack from your deck to your hand, which is pretty cool to be able to add any of your Resonator monsters from your deck to your hand. Then play the same copy of Phantom Skyblaster. Phantom Skyblaster is really good in the deck too because it has the ability that when this card is normal summon or flip summon, you can special summon any number of Skyblaster tokens, Fiend, Dark, level 4, 500 attack, 500 defense, up to the number of monsters your opponent controls, which is really good to be able to get those monsters onto your side of the field. And then also during your standby phase, you can inflict 300 points of damage to your opponent for each Skyblaster monster you control, except another copy, or for every Skyblaster monster you control. And Skyblaster monster you control cannot declare an attack the turn you activate this effect, which this is, as far as I know, the only other Skyblaster monster in the entire game. So We then play 2 copies of Perform Age Hat Trigger. Hat Trigger is if you control 2 monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is pretty good to be able to get this card out on your side of the field as a synchro material, as a level 4 monster. It's really, really helpful. And then we play 3 copies of Witch of the Black Forest. Witch of the Black Forest comes in super handy because what this card does is if it's sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add 1 monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand, but you cannot activate cards or effects with that card's name for the rest of the turn, and you can only use the effect of Witch of the Black Forest once per turn. This card's really good and is a great 3-of in the deck because you can use it quite easily in the deck to be able to get into a lot of your searches into the deck. Like, the majority of the deck can be searched by Witch of the Black Forest. We then play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom comes in super handy because Ash Blossom just helps you stop your opponent from doing all sorts of shenanigans by stopping your opponent from searching the deck, adding cards from deck to hand, or sending cards from deck to graveyard. It's just an overall really good card in this deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we are going to be playing a single copy of Call by the Grave. Call by the Grave is really helpful in this deck because it just stops your opponent from hitting you with a hand trap. We play a single copy of Monster Reborn because it's really helpful to get your Resonator monsters back on your side of the field, or your dragons that you use as synchro material back on your side of the field. 2 copies of Pot of Desires because there's not a single card in this deck that I mind banishing, to be honest. It's basically just a monster mash deck that's trying to get monsters on your side of the field as quickly as possible to be able to synchro summon into your high-level dragon monsters. We then play 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone because dealing with back row is really kind of tough in this deck outside of Cosmic Cyclone, so you play the Cosmic Cyclones just to deal with back row. 3 copies of your Resonator Call. Let me move these over real quick. 3 copies of Resonator Call. This adds any Resonator monster from your deck to your hand, which is super helpful. And then 3 copies of Resonator Command, which is kind of cool because it's kind of like they command the Fiend monsters, which is kind of cool. You discard a Resonator to add a level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. I like that effect to be able to add the Fiends for the Resonators and the Resonators on their own, which is really cool. I like that aspect of the deck because you're getting basically 6 Rotas in the deck to be able to add the pieces that you need in the deck at any particular time, along with draw power as well, which is pretty nice. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So we play a single copy of Red Rain. Red Rain is really good, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Red Rain comes in pretty handy because if you control a level 8 or higher synchro monster, you banish all monsters on the field except for that monster or monsters with the highest level. Also, the remaining face-up monsters on the field are unaffected by other card effects except their own until the end of this turn. And then if a Dark Dragon synchro monster is synchro summoned on your field while this card's in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand, which is a really good effect to be able to use this card multiple times and be able to just destroy everything on the field. And then Infinite Impermanence is really good because it just stops monster effects, and it's a good 3-of in the deck. You can play any hand trap you want in this position. It doesn't super matter what you play in the deck at this point, but you can play these to be able to just stop your opponent from, hitting you with monster effects. So that's it for the traps, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, you're going to be playing 3 copies of Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. This card is single-handedly probably the best playmaker in the entire extra deck because it is a level 8 Dark Dragon monster, and that's pretty much all you need to know about it. It's a level 8 Dark Dragon monster. It has an amazing effect as well, along with being the playmaker of the deck. Then the main monster, as you can see by the playmat and the entire theme of the deck, that you're going to be using. This card's always treated, or this card's name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard. And then once per turn, you can destroy as many special summon effect monsters on the field as possible with attack less than or equal to their to this card's other than this card, and then you can inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each card destroyed, which is really good. I really like that effect. You can inflict a lot of damage and a lot of burn damage against your opponent with this card, and also board wipe. We then play 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. Red Rising Dragon is kind of like the pre-evolve form, if you guys know about Pokemon, which of course you know about Pokemon. Basically, it's the pre-evolve form of Scarlight, which it has the ability that when this card is synchro summoned, you target a Resonator monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and then you can have special summon monsters from the extra deck for the turn you activate its effects, except Dark Dragon monsters, which is fine because we don't play anything else besides Dark Dragon monsters except for one card in the entire extra deck. And it also has the ability that during your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish it, and then you get to target 2 level 1 Resonator monsters in your graveyard and special summon both of them, which is really good. Be able to just immediately get a Resonator monster in your graveyard and special summon it, essentially the one that you're probably going to use to summon this card anyways. And you get to target 2 level 1s in your graveyard and then special summon them back, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard. 2 copies of Hot Red Dragon, Archfiend Abyss. Archfiend Abyss is really good in this deck too. That during either player's turn, you can target a phase of card your opponent controls and negate its effects is the big effect of this card. But the other effect that a lot of people don't get to use outside of this card or outside of this deck is that when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target a tuner monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense position. Usually you don't get that effect that often when you play this in a lot of other decks, but this is the main deck that you're going to want to use that effect because you're going to synchro climb. We then play a single copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Bane is pretty good too because it has the ability to be able to get you some really powerful boss monsters on the field that you contribute 1 monster, target a Red Dragon Archfiend monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. Then you can inflict damage to your opponent. When this card inflicts damage to your opponent, you can special summon 2 tuner monsters with the same level, 1 from your deck and 1 from your graveyard, in defense position. And you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. I summon this card probably the most in the extra deck, to be honest, out of the boss monsters because it's really easy to help you climb into the other big boss monsters as well. 1 copy of Tyrant, Red Dragon Archfiend Tyrant. This card's really good because it has the ability to, during your main phase, you can destroy all cards on the field. Also for the rest of the turn, other monsters you control cannot attack. It protects itself because it says all other monsters on the field, and then during either player's battle phase, when a spell or trap is activated, negate the activation. If you destroy that card, and if you do that, this card gains 500 additional attack, going up to 4,000, which is crazy. And it does take 2 tuner monsters, which is why it's such a broke card. We then play a single copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. King Calamity is really good in this deck because it has the ability that when this card is synchro summoned, you get to activate the effect for the rest of the turn. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects, and your opponent cannot activate cards and effects in response to this effect. So it's a speed spell for Cold Wave, which is really insane. And if this card destroys a monster by battle, inflict damage to your opponent equal to destroy monster's original attack. And if this card in its owner's possession destroys an opponent's monster by battle or by card effect, then you get to special summon, you get to target a level 8 or lower Dark Dragon monster, synchro monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. So it replaces itself too, which is really good. And then, yeah, it replaces itself, which is insane. Then we play a single copy of Red Nova. Red Nova comes up quite a lot if you're going into the later game because this card gains 500 attack for each tuner monster in your graveyard, which you play like 7 or 8 in the entire deck. So this card can get pretty big. I love this card as well because it has the ability that this card cannot be destroyed by card effects of your opponent's spells or traps or monsters. And then when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you get to select the target and then remove this card from play and then negate the attack. And then during the end phase, you can special summon this card back, which is pretty good. We play a single copy of Void Ogre to eat spells and traps. We play a single copy of Beals because sometimes you need to like play a little defensively. And this is how I play defensively in this deck. And then the only non-Dark Dragon monster in the entire deck, and don't let you say no that Jack's using Akiza's card, but we're playing a single copy of Black Rose Dragon. Black Rose Dragon comes in handy because you can blow boards really easily. There, you have to kind of watch out though in this deck because there is instances that it's really hard to go into Black Rose Dragon because you're locking yourself into Dark Dragon monsters, but there's not really another Dark Dragon that I want to play. So I throw in Black Rose just to blow boards in the rare occasion that I'm actually going to do it. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Definitely tell me what you think of this deck down in the comments down below. It is a super fun deck to play around with and really nostalgic to be able to play with the king himself, Jack Atlas's most powerful ace monster, Red Dragon Archfiend. And it is an amazing, amazing card at that. So anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad. And definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below. And we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.